Today we're going to take a walk through the Proven Winner Signature Garden here at Garden Crossings. Hi, I'm Heidi. There are so many beautiful perennials and shrubs right now that are in full color that I wanted to just take you for a walk and show you what is currently blooming. So let's go ahead and take a walk through the gardens. Last week we got a fresh layer of mulch in all of the flower beds, and that's such a nice refreshing thing to see. I think it makes them look so clean and tidy when you have that fresh mulch in there. The reason why we use mulch is to keep the weeds at bay. So we find that by putting a nice coating of mulch in, usually about every 2 years or so, it really helps us with some of our weed control. Some of the first things that we're seeing here in the garden blooming are some phlox. Creeping phlox are a beautiful ground cover that like to be planted in full sun locations. These here are just starting to put on their blooms, and they create a beautiful sea of color. Behind it, we've got a rogue columbine or acalygia, just really blowing in the breeze here today. And I think too that those columbine are also a nice introduction to spring. Making our way around, I see that the dianthus are starting to put on some buds. So this will probably be one of the next things that we'll be doing a video on, is when these paint the town dianthus are blooming. Corabelles are looking nice, along with some more various colors of phlox. It's just so nice to see those from a distance because they add such a mass of color when those creeping phlox are in bloom. The storm cloud Amsonia are also looking beautiful. So I love the storm cloud Amsonia. When they first start to emerge from the ground, their stems are nearly black. And as they continue to grow, they've got kind of an olive green foliage with these bright blue flowers. It's so pretty to watch them as they're dancing here in the breeze. This is a pretty good indicator of the size of the Amsonia. It's about 20 to 24 inches tall and about 24 inches wide, creating a beautiful upward mounding habit. Got some penstemon, nice foliage even though they're not flowering yet. And another beautiful Amsonia storm cloud. Planted behind the Amsonia storm cloud is the bloomerang dark purple lilac. So this lilac was moved, I think it's been probably about 4 years, maybe 5 years ago, from over on the, actually I'll show you, over on the far side of the garden center there where you're seeing that white fence. We had a row of shrubs and perennials that got removed when we put on the outdoor garden center area and the butterfly house. This lilac transferred like a champ and has continued to put on beautiful blooms here for the last 4 or 5 years. Bloomerang series of lilac are a re-blooming lilac, so these bloom throughout the summer. Beautiful dark purple blooms. Now this is the spring bloom, and to be honest, the spring bloom is the most prolific bloom, but to be able to get a lilac that is blooming throughout the summer with any type of flower, that's absolutely a bonus in my eyes. This plant is about 5 foot tall, and I'd say it's nearly 8 foot wide. So it's a really a very mature specimen of lilac, and it's just heavenly sitting here downwind, smelling the beautiful flowers. Other things of interest in this garden bed, we'll head up to the front, and you're seeing that little splash of golden yellow. That is the candy corn spirea. I'm going to get around to the front of the bed so you can see the grouping we have here. There are 3 of them that are planted in this bed. And the thing I like about these candy corn spirea is that even before there's really any flowers starting to bloom in this area, these candy corn spirea, as they emerge from the foliage as it emerges off of the stems, it's really bright and beautiful with that yellow foliage. The tips of it, the newest growth, is a beautiful kind of a mahogany color. These create a nice mounding habit, and they'll have pink flowers on them midsummer. So we've got a grouping here of 3 that just kind of follow around the front of this garden bed. In addition to getting a fresh layer of mulch, we felt very confident that the frost is over, the cold temperatures are over here in Michigan. So we got out and got some of our annuals planted. So in this fence row here, we are doing a mass planting of bubblegum petunia along with the unplugged salvia. And then we're going to try to get some dill or fennel out here as well for the swallowtail butterflies. On the back side of the berm, we've got some smaller lilacs blooming. These here are the dwarf pink. I'm going to take a look here. So for some reason this one didn't bloom so good this year. One stem bloomed really nicely, but the rest of the plant is kind of a little small, and who knows why. Here we've got the dwarf pink, and these plants are only about 24 inches tall, so super compact. The dwarf pink bloomerang lilac along with the dwarf purple are also both rebloomers, part of that bloomerang series. Everything is just looking so good right now. And I think it's kind of interesting looking at these flower beds before they get loaded up with annuals, just to see kind of the structure and the plants that we have in these areas that are more of our staple plants, our perennials and our shrubs, before we load it up with that annual color. Planted around our tree, we've got some of the ilex. These are I think they're the gem box ilex, and these are pretty nice specimens. It's taken a while for these guys to put on some size. I think this is probably their 4th, maybe even their 5th year. And finally, I'd say they really look like something of substantial size. And we did kind of a little C behind the tree, like the letter C, to create some evergreen interest in this bed, even in the winter time when there's not a lot of interest going on. So that this is kind of circling, a half circle anyways, of that tree. Poppies, monarda, coneflowers, daylilies, those are all the different various foliages that I'm seeing in this garden bed. We're going to go head on over to the north side of the garden and check out what is showing us color over there. I'll give you a quick little look of this area. This is the waterfall garden, and this has not been planted up yet. This is going to get planted up with sun patience, but we're a little hesitant to put the sun patience out yet because they are more cold sensitive than what petunias are. So that I want to wait just another week or so before we come out here and plant those. But this is going to be a sea of, I don't even know what color we used. It'll be a beautiful sea of color though, once we get all the sun patience in place. Between the waterfalls is always kind of a trickier area when we're planting, because sometimes that area can be really dry and other times really wet. So we're going to shake that area up with what we're putting there this year as well. So we'll be sure to talk about what we decided to go with in that area once we start planting as well. Beautiful little violas out here. I forget what the name of these are, so I'm going to try to put the name on the screen for you. But I just love kind of a dainty, different looking flower form, and certainly different foliage. Nice little surprises to find. The 55-mile-an-hour garden is now planted. This year we did the Supertunia Vista Jazzberries, 2 rows, and then in front of those we have the Macedonia Gold Dust. So it's going to be a beautiful yellow and kind of pinkish purple combination as this area fills out. We've got some allium bulbs blooming. I love allium. They're just such a fun and whimsy flower in the garden. These, I think, are the allium, I think gigantica or something like that is what they're called. These are bulbs. These are not like a perennial plant per se, but just these large purple balls dancing in the breeze. I think look so pretty along this garden bed. Heaven Sent Polemonium is looking really pretty next to those golden spireas. Another spring blooming perennial. Beautiful periwinkle blooms, and it's so fragrant too. As the name implies, scent. Heaven Sent. A very heavily scented perennial. Kind of smells like grapes in my opinion. It's got nice olive green foliage, kind of a fern-like looking foliage. Likes to be planted in full sun to part shade locations and creates a nice upward mound. So this plant is about 18 or 20 or so inches tall, and this one is kind of, I think there might actually be a grouping here of 3 of them. So I would say each plant's only about 18 inches wide. And then when you put 3 together, we have almost a 30-inch mound of this beautiful purple color. I think this was really nicely placed here between the spirea. As I mentioned, that yellow looks so nice up against that purple. So perfectly placed in this garden. They just, one accents the other beautifully, I think. This is one area of the garden where the mulch has really just made it look so much nicer. This garden has been a work in progress for several years and really has kind of struggled along the way. Just getting the soil right and getting the plants established in this bed hasn't been easy. So I want to tell you, it's not always easy when you're creating a new garden bed. So don't feel like if you're doing something and you feel like you're failing at it, that you won't succeed. Sometimes it just takes some time for you to succeed. So don't let that scare you. So some of the things we're seeing here blooming right now are the Virginia or pig squeak. These are the Miss Piggy varieties. And as you can see, these are planted in full sun. Typically, we would think of these as a shade variety, which they can also be grown in shade. But here they're doing just fabulous in this full sun garden. Remember, we are in Michigan, so those of you in the South, this may not be an ideal situation for you, but this is working pretty good for us. And large clusters of beautiful pink flowers. The other thing too, if you remember seeing videos from last year, this area was all dirt. We had it hydro-seeded, and now grass is coming in really nicely and filling in this area to create a beautiful park-like setting. Along that cement retaining wall, we have all the wood chips laid, and that's another planting project that will be going on this summer, is getting that whole bed planted up. You can see how we use foliage for interest in these beds with the nice chartreuse and yellows. In the far distance there, you're seeing the golden ticket privets, fairly compact right now, but that yellow is really very vibrant here in this garden. Closer in front of me here, we have the oregano. This is the drops of Jupiter, and this is a nice low growing ground cover that creates a nice mounding habit. This is a plant though that you want to put in an area that you're okay if it spreads, because it does tend to be a little bit of a spreader. During the summer, it's going to have beautiful purple flowers, but in the meantime, this golden foliage is spot on. A few weeks back, we did video of the creeping phlox in this bed, and they're still holding on and still looking pretty good. This is the Phlox Rose Sprite. Beautiful masses of pink color. You can see over there, there's a little bit of the Heaven Sent Jacob's Ladder, a few more of those blooming. Waiting for the Deutzia to start blooming, and they've got little buds starting, so that'll be in a video coming to you soon. The Clematis are climbing up their re-rod trellises pretty nicely. They're about 24 inches tall right now, so we've got a ways to make it up there, but that's going to be a beautiful summer blooming plant we'll be featuring. Gembox Ilex. We planted kind of a wave of these in this garden to give us winter interest. It's kind of a sweeping wave, and those are filling out really nicely as well. More masses of creeping flock. This is 3 different varieties planted together to give us kind of this tricolor look. Creeping phlox is a plant, as the name implies, that creeps. It's supposed to be a nice low growing ground cover to give you a mass of spring interest. This very bright one on the end here is the Spring Bling Ruby Riot. The Ajuga are blooming right now. Look at that. Ajuga too is a nice ground cover. These actually seem pretty tall. They're almost 12 to 18 inches tall. Nice chartreuse yellow foliage, beautiful purple flowers. It's really pretty. I don't have the name of this one. I'll put it up on the screen for you. But again, you see how we're using that foliage interest to really make things pop in the garden. Planting that chartreuse next to the dark foliage here of the Weigela Very Fine Wine gives some really nice contrast. More dianthus waiting to explode with color. Look at all those buds. This is going to be awesome once they start to bloom. Heuchera in full sun. This is the Dolce Wildberry. Nice glossy purple foliage. I just love how they shine here in the sun. Lots of potential color coming up here yet in the garden, so this will be all progressing as the spring turns to summer. One of the longest blooming perennials though in this garden bed is the Dicentra. This is Dicentra Pink Diamonds, and we have a mass planting here of this. And as you'll notice, this is Dicentra Bleeding Heart planted in full sun. Look at those beautiful flowers. This plant will bloom until the first hard frost. So one of the longest blooming plants in the garden, and in my opinion, I was quite surprised with it because when I first introduced this plant, I thought, oh my goodness, it's a shade plant. But it is doing fabulous in the sun, and it's meant to be in the sun. Iris are another one of those spring bloomers that are such a welcoming sign to the garden. I love this particular variety. It's a white flower with heavily purple veining. This is a reblooming iris, so it'll bloom again later on in the season. I just think they're such a pretty plant. I think iris too are kind of an iconic plant in the garden that a lot of people have memories based around irises, and as I've said before, lilacs. The Salvia Color Spears Pink Dawn, looking really pretty. It's just starting to open up in bloom. I love those beautiful pink flower spikes, a great plant for the pollinators. This plant is nice because it blooms not only here in May in Michigan, but as we trim it back when it's done flowering, it's going to continue to bloom throughout the summer. So it's a great reblooming plant as long as you keep up on trimming it back and removing any of the old spent blooms. The nice open flowers are really what is inviting to the pollinators in the garden. I hope you enjoyed today's tour. If you have any questions or comments on any of the plants we looked at in today's garden, please feel free to leave them below. If you're new to our station, we welcome you to subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching. I'm Heidi from Garden Crossings.